Welcome, dear listeners, to the Raven Recordings, where shadows whisper and the macabre comes alive. I am your writer and host, E.J. Moon. Each week, we will delve into the gothic unknown, weaving tales of haunted souls, cursed fates, and the eerie beauty of forgotten worlds. So grab a steaming mug of hot cocoa, wrap yourself in your coziest blanket, and settle in for a spine-tingling story. Are you brave enough to join us on this dark journey? Then step closer, for the story awaits, if you dare.
The Haunting of Hellock Manor. Sarah stood at the gates of Hellock Manor, her breath misting in the chilled air. The mansion loomed before her, its Queen and Victorian facade cracked and streaked with moss. The windows are opaque and unblinking. Peeling eggshell blue shutters hung from the windows like they were drunk on neglect. She tightened her grip on the wrought iron gate, its coolness biting her palm. As she forced open the creaking front door, a musty scent wafted out, damp wood and mildew, and a metallic taste stuck to the back of her throat. The air inside was heavy and thick with years of decay. Sarah's footsteps echoed through the cavernous foyer. She walked on for a while, stepping into the rooms ever so slightly, just hovering at the doorway to look as if she was at a house tour of a dead president or famous, also dead, author. Stopping in what looked like an intimate library to look at a large oil painting of whom she can only assume is her grandmother, Lillian, she was suddenly engulfed in overbearing silence. Lillian Hellock. The matriarch. The sentinel in pearls. She looked regal in her mint green gown. Her jet black hair is perfectly coiffed, tied back to display a delicate sparkling diamond tiara perched on her perfect little head. Her eyes were pale green, matching her dress. And she was viciously beautiful. Sarah could see her mother's bone structure in the chin, the impossibly high cheekbones. Her bone china pearlescent skin glowed like Lady Bathory after a bloodbath. What happened? Why did mother never let me meet you? She knew she would get no answers from a painting. She did not bother asking out loud, but she thought it. She thought about it the rest of the night. She planned to stay just this one night, long enough to assess the property and flee back to the city, her safe little apartment, and a safe little life. Back to her stable job at the office, the plant's Mrs. Carter across the hall watered for her while she was gone, back to her sacred, safe, perfect schedule. She was confused when her mother called, asking Sarah to handle the estate of a grandmother she never met. "Will you do it, darling, please?" Her mother crooned in that sweet saccharine way she had used all her life. Southern belle charm, she called it. Sarah called it sugared manipulation. "Why, mother? You have lawyers, accountants. Why do you want me to go?" "Because it's sensitive, my dear. This whole thing. I never met her. That's why you are perfect. I would go, but... You know your father, he is so sensitive about these things." "Sensitive," Sarah repeated. Her father was rarely sensitive, except about certain things. She did not know her dead grandmother was one of them. "Yes, sensitive." "Will you do it?" "It's just a day or two, you can sign the paperwork and be on your way." Her mother hesitated. Sarah braced herself. "Maybe you can come to Maine, spend the week with us, here." "I'll think about it, mother." "Will you go?" "Yes, mother. I'll go." And now here she was. She distinctly knew she did not want to be here. But as she wandered its twisted corridors, the house seemed to draw her deeper into its riddles. Shadows danced, and every creak of the floorboards raised her pulse slightly faster. She looked around her. Furniture of all kinds, trinkets of value, and other items are complete junk. A horsehair chaise lounger with peeling gold leaf around the molding sat across a dirty old hearth. Clumps of petrified wood from the last time the fireplace was used, probably decades ago, lay scattered and covered in dust and spiderwebs. She utterly hated it. Every inch of it. But there was a silence deep within that made her feel safe. Calm. Knowing that no soul was around for acres and acres on either side, the solitude softened the blow of being here. That night, Sarah lay awake in the master bedroom, staring at the cracked ceiling as shades of smoky gray shadows streaked across it. The bed sagged beneath her, its canopy dangling in tatters. She had attempted to sleep, but every sound set her nerves alight. Then she heard a faint whisper, like leaves brushing against each other. It grew louder, more insistent, threading through the room's stillness. Sarah bolted upright. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked in the quiet. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she crept toward the door. "You can't go out there. What if it's a robber or a killer?" She quickly pulled the iron poker from its holder by the ancient fireplace and gripped it tightly. Then she crept towards the door, careful to remain silent. The sound came again, soft and distant, drawing her down the hallway and up a thin staircase she hadn't detected before. At the top, the attic door stood open, yawning blackness. Sarah hesitated at the entry, gripping the poker so tightly that her knuckles ached. Slowly, so very slowly, she slipped inside. The attic was a graveyard of forgotten things illuminated by a bright full moon, its translucent light spilling through the windows. She saw a trunk spilling pale and delicate garments, damaged furnishings draped in cobwebs, and a grandfather clock, forever frozen at midnight. Her gaze swept across the room until it caught on something extraordinary, a chest tucked into a gloomy corner. Unlike everything else in the attic, it glistened as though freshly polished. The lustrous sheen seemed to ooze from the edges, a strange chiaroscuro between the shadows and light playing tricks with her eyes. Kneeling before it, Sarah felt for a lock, slipped the latch, and pulled the top away. Inside was a single item, a leather-bound diary with an elaborately decorated clasp. Her fingers brushed over its cover, which bore the name Lillian Hellock embossed in gold letters. The diary's pages reeked of mildew. Sarah read by lamplight in bed that night, each entry pulling her deeper into Lillian's world and into dread. Wrapped up in fresh sheets she brought with her, she could not fathom sleeping on someone else's old linens, curled into a little ball like a teenager reading her best friend's diary. The first few entries were benign. One about a visit from an old friend. "Madeline is such a charming girl." She had written in cursive, so delicate that it looked mechanical. Another was a visit to a family member. Pages upon pages of details, the weather was nice for a walk in the garden, and the roses are blooming magnificently, such blossoms that they take your breath away to look into them. But these seemingly small daily details, and the woman writing about them, suddenly changed from one page to the next. Then Sarah began reading and reading, unable to drag her eyes away from the horror unraveling before her eyes. "Victor watches me always," one entry began in the impossible script. "His love is not love, it is possession." Another entry whispered secrets, "I met him again today. The man from the woods. He is kind whereas Victor is cruel." Sarah's breath quickened as she turned page after page. "Oh, God. What happened to you, Lillian?" Then came darker confessions. "The house feels alive at night. Doors open on their own, shadows move where no light falls. And finally, Victor knows about him. I see it in his eyes." Sarah turned the page. Only one more entry was left, making Sarah's stomach wrench. It was not written by Lillian. Instead, large, aggressive handwriting spelled out what happened to Lillian, with bold gashes across the page and hot, angry letters forming words on the paper. "I have locked her away. She will never leave me now. No one will ever find her." Sarah slammed the diary shut, her chest squeezing with rage. Where did you lock her up, you monster?" Sarah found herself awake in the large bed, the morning sun spilling through the windows, the shredded curtains providing little cover. "I must have fallen asleep at some point." The diary lay open next to her, the pages displaying something curious. She had not noticed it the night before while she devoured the words describing her grandmother's tragedy. Yet, there it was, words she had not noticed, one page after Victor's written confession, in her grandmother's impossible script. Sarah read, "It's dripping on me." Sarah ventured through the twisted corridors of Hellock Manor, her footsteps echoing off the walls as she tapped and probed every inch of the ancient structure. Her search had been fruitless until she stumbled upon a forgotten bathroom shrouded in a perpetual gloom. The air was heavy with the scent of dampness and decay, and cobwebs clung to the corners like macabre tapestries. In the center of the room, an old, dilapidated bathtub stood like a relic, its porcelain surface cracked and worn, its metal fixtures rusted and twisted. As she approached the tub, a sense of unease settled over her. With a surge of curiosity, she grasped the tub's edges and heaved it aside, revealing a hidden trapdoor beneath. The wooden slats were weathered and worn, adorned with antique iron hinges. Something about the discovery felt thrilling and foreboding, as if she had disturbed a long-dormant secret. The air thickened with anticipation, and Sarah's heart pounded as she hesitated, wondering what mysteries the door might conceal beneath its weathered surface. Opening it, she looked within to reveal a little passage plunging into darkness. The air inside was stinging and damp. Sarah's flashlight, a beneficial find through her hunt of the kitchen, illuminated thick stone walls slick with moisture and streaked with cobwebs. The passage twisted downward like a gullet, swallowing her whole before opening into a small chamber. Her breath seized as she stepped inside. What she saw horrified her. A scream ripped from her throat. Thick chains hung from one wall, rusted and covered in mossy tarnish. A ragged, tattered dress crumpled on the floor. The lacy edges bent and yellowed like dried, lifeless flowers. Next to it was a gnarled mass of raven-black hair. Sarah took it all in. The pieces of Lillian's life started to come together. Monster. Victor, you are a monster. Finally, when she could breathe, Sarah scanned the room with her flashlight. A further revelation sent her reeling. Pure, violent, hot rage bubbled within her. The dress, the stone floor, the walls, tiny splatters of crimson rust sprayed across them all. Above the place where the chains met the wall, a sizable unyielding bolt tethering it to its position, there were words carved deep into stone. Justice will find you all. Suddenly, the flashlight beam sputtered, flickered once. Twice, then disappeared. Darkness swallowed her whole. Sarah fumbled with the switch. One click of the button, then two. Nothing. When it flickered back on moments later, Sarah let out a ragged breath of relief. But it was just a moment of solace. When she scanned the room again, Sarah's body froze, and every sense was paralyzed with brutal fear. A figure stood in the corner of the room, a woman draped in white, her long black hair spilling over her gossamer white face. Lillian? Sarah's voice barely fled her throat. The figure raised its head slowly, and Sarah wished it hadn't. The face was hollowed and wasted, and the eyes were ebony pits that seemed to swallow light. You shouldn't have come, Lillian hissed, her voice echoing off stone walls. I wanted to know what happened, Sarah stuttered. Lillian stepped forward, Sarah stumbled back until a cold stone pressed against her spine. They knew, Lillian whispered, a delayed sound suspended above moving lips. Your family, they all knew what he did to me. I didn't know. Sarah screamed out desperately. Lillian tilted her head as though considering this before talking again. Then you will make it right. How? Sarah whispered hoarsely. Fire, Lillian said. Then she was gone. That night brought no rest for Sarah, only whispers seeping through cracks in walls and shadows pooling beneath furniture like slopped ink. Exhausted but committed by dawn's light, she settled upon it. Hellock Manor would burn. It took days to prepare, and permits for demolition were secured quickly. Gasoline cans lined every room, and matches trembled in Sarah's hand as she struck them alight one by one until flames roared through halls once steeped in darkness and despair. As Hellock Manor collapsed into greedy ashes behind her, Sarah watched the smoke curl into dawn's pale sky. The flames had consumed everything, every secret, every shadow, every whisper. Yet, as she turned to leave, she felt a pull, a sudden compulsion to look just one more time. The wind picked up and swirled around her. A maddening chorus of whispers that seemed to come from all directions hit her ears like pressure from a coming storm. Sarah spun around, but there was no one there, only the skeletal remains of Hellock Manor, its walls now nothing more than a smoldering ruin. She took a step forward, her eyes scanning the desolate landscape. The whispers grew louder, more urgent until they became a single, haunting phrase repeated over and over. Justice will find you all. Sarah's heart pounded as she realized some secrets were not meant to be kept. The wind howled again. This time, she heard her name, Sarah, a whisper on its breath. She turned to run, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. The ashes of Hellock Manor were shifting, reforming into something new. A figure began to take shape, a woman in white, her face now serene. Her black hair flowed in unseen wind. Lillian's phantom stood before her, its presence fierce yet comforting. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Sarah felt the weight of generations of secrets and sorrow suddenly lift off her shoulders, a burden she did not even know she bared. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure dissolved into a shimmering cloud of dust. Then, it disappeared entirely. The whispers halted, leaving only a peaceful silence. For the first time since being here, Sarah heard birds chirping. The hum of honey bees, the pulse of life restored. In the distance, the blare of fire trucks barely caught her attention. Yes, she jumped the gun. She should have waited the extra day for the demolition crew. But, what the hell? The place needed to burn. The police took some notes and looked at her like she was obviously lying, which she was when she told them she accidentally set a fire in one of the ancient fireplaces, quickly overtaking the rest of the structure. We will contact you if we have any more questions. Sorry about your loss, one officer said. She wasn't sure if he meant Lillian or the house. Either way, she smiled innocently and waved a slight goodbye as they went, clearly apathetic about the whole thing. When it was all done, Sarah was back in her tidy hotel room outside town. She picked up the phone and dialed. Hello, dear. How did it go? Her mother's voice was always pleasant, kind, and ladylike, and it did not grate Sarah as before. A sudden flush of love bubbled in her, for her mother, for Lillian, and for herself. But she still had to tell her mother what she did. A lump in her throat made her words stumble out without finesse. I burned it to the ground, Mother. There was a pause, a soft sigh, and then her mother's voice resonated through her ears. Are you sure? Her mother's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. I did. Sarah responded softly. I'm proud of you. Mother said. Thank you, Mother. They allowed silence to engulf them both, nothing more needed to be said. Yet, abruptly, static began to flood through the receiver. Then, a soft rustling of what sounded like fabric came through. Suddenly, an unnatural, fractured, and faraway voice said,
Thank you both.
Thank you for joining me on this journey into the shadows. As the darkness closes in, remember that the tales of the Raven recordings will linger long after the lights go out. Until next time, when the moon casts its eerie glow and the whispers grow loud once more, farewell, and may the darkness treat you kindly.